Hello everyone. Hi, I hope you're all well today and so are your loved ones during these unusual circumstances. So my name is Yom and I'm a senior test engineer and I'm moving on to a new exciting role next week. Really looking forward to that. And so a little bit about me. Fun fact, when I was little, I grew up in Finland. It's a very cold place, so I actually got my tongue stuck in a lamppost, frozen, for probably about an hour before anyone noticed. And my presentations many times get inspired by my daughter. So in this case, it's with volcanoes. So this was sourced from one of those typical school science projects. And now me as an agile tester, so I believe that the key to agile delivery, shared understanding, and quality comes from a combination of great communication and an interdisciplinary approach. With this, you get the whole team's input as early as possible, and it helps you to reach all the goals of your stakeholders and the company, as well as meet the users' expectations. And of course, this means a lot of conversations crisscross with people from this or that department, and not all of them are aware of the terminology or the product. So what I have made myself as a challenge for both being inclusive but also help my own understanding and learning is to how to explain the same things with non-techie terms and with real life examples. If you are always prepared, you can always help yourself and others visualize the actual impact of things and real life scenarios and what you could do about them by comparing it with examples that are not just in the code or anything like this. So I will now turn on the slides and we will move on from there. So here's a bit of a repetition of what we have already discussed. So the challenge is still the same, explain the same things with non-techie terms and real-life examples. And this time, I'd like to share my thoughts on the eruption types of tech debts. A quick disclaimer here, I'm not an expert on volcanoes and tech debt is of course not always 100 times comparable, but we will go through why and when it is. So what we will go through is what do tech debt and volcanoes have in common? The anatomy of the tech debt volcano and the eruptions. The kind of risks to look out for. Why tech debt can or cannot be treated like volcanoes. And in the end, how to embed this in your ways of working. So let's start with what's considered as tech debt. While we refer to defects as bugs, tech debt is more like trash that needs taking out. It will not crawl all over you, but it will fill your room and make you walk around it, and at some point attract pests. So what could create tech debt? Here are a few examples. It could be software that was supposed to be a MVP, minimum viable product, and it didn't get iterated on despite intentions to do so. Or we didn't do something and descoped it, although it would have been necessary. It could have been a piece of work that was rushed through with workarounds because we wanted to release it first and then deal with it later. Software that was built on top of something old with known risks or issues. Software that is still being developed on, although it has been deemed too old or complicated to fix or refactor. It can also be forgotten non-functional requirements that are to be implemented later, dependencies, missing tests, or poor observability. It can also be missing documentation such as ADRs, architectural decision recordings, or simply realizing later what should have been done, but we've not had the time for it. The problem with tech debt is that it will keep piling up and keep coming back on the surface. And like many things, it will cost more in resources and time if it's not addressed. This is not to say that you can't fail and everything can be done right from the start, but it is about putting the effort and time to revisit it and fix it. By starting a conversation about the existing tech debt, ensure psychological safety and practice the no-blame culture. Focus on the shared understanding of what is the impact, whom it impacts, and not who rushed something, who forgot something, who caused something, or who raised something. The focus should be identifying the issue objectively and come up with a robust solution together as a team to deal with it now or in future. So here is the parts of the volcano on a high level. So both, what do they have in common? Tech debt and volcanoes. Both of them are built up with time and in layers, making it more and more difficult to tackle and more visible to everyone. It becomes something that is looming in the horizon, some still waiting to erupt, and others constantly active. So if we have a look at here, you've got secondary events where magma comes out. This is like small issues that have a minimal impact, but they start coming a bit here and there. So you can see that it will start spreading and impact your dependencies and your users, although it's still not very much. And the main outlet is yet to come. And instead of fixing it, many times it happens that layers of code gets added on top of each other like plasters without getting refactored, which will lead to a bigger visible impact. And the main reason for the eruption is not the volcano itself, but the magma which is hidden under all the layers. Like tech debt is just old code covered by others. The more it is layered up, the more difficult it will be to deal with it without rocking a few boats. While volcanoes are just a pipeline for the underlying magma, so are the visible impact just symptoms of the underlying tech debt, which in itself consists of code smells, vulnerabilities, and waste that has built up and is ready to erupt anytime. So what kind of eruptions could there be? There could be as many different kinds as there are different kind of products and code stacks, but here's a few. So an Icelandic eruption, where it's superficial and has a low visibility, it spreads slowly and harms the surrounding area. This could be something like team-owned environments. They have a low visibility for others, but it spreads issues everywhere because the team themselves could not test properly, as an example. Then the Hawaiian eruption, it is static and underlying. It has multiple layers and it slows down the development and it's difficult to investigate. It slows development down because it's multi-layered, so every time you try to fix something, you would need to fix something else as well, and it's difficult to investigate because of its layers. As an example, this could be a pending migration to make your services or your code compatible. Then there's the Plinian eruption. It has a high impact and visibility. It damages the surrounding. It is difficult to approach and it can be step-specific. This could be something that is impacting strategically. So it might be that it's visible only to some users, and the damage is only on those users. For example, missing contract tests could cause a failure like this. So we also have Plinian eruptions. They have a high visibility, it shoots high, it's well known and dominating, and it spreads and has a long-term impact, so it comes down as small drizzles. This could, for example, be bad data, so it would be dominating because data is everywhere, it needs to be pulled from the right places, it is displayed in the wrong place, and it could be something that is well known that people shy away from your product because of that. So what would you look out for when you have eruptions like this? Without planning ahead and assessing your tech debt, you might miss things like long-term impact on your dependencies or dependents. You might not discover unidentified tech debt at all. And there could be strategic or environmental impact that are indirect. One of the strategic impact could be just the location of the tech debt and not necessarily the severity of it. As an example, look at this beautiful lake on top of a mountain. It's actually a supervolcano that is located at the border of China and North Korea and within 100 miles radius of a nuclear site. Last time it erupted, it shook all the way to Japan. Depending on where the tech debt is left or identified, it can actually lead to further tech debt, environmental issues, loss of users with poor usability, for example, poor testability, couldn't test in the way that would have been the best because of XYZ, bad data, disturbance in delivery, because you use all your time working on the workarounds or blockage, and tech debt can pose the same risks as defects. So when can you not treat tech debts like volcanoes? You cannot try to survive a tech debt. You can ignore it, go around it, delay it, but it's not going to go anywhere. Many times, the new layers are built to cover up, trying to build around it or shelter it, and this will just allow the tech debt to grow. Without breaking the cycle, your new better code will get covered up or infested by the rotten foundation. When unaddressed, the tech debt will outlive its creators. The important thing is to not be complacent to incomplete quality. Unlike volcanoes, investing money and time to monitor it, to gain information to predict the next eruption is not the solution. This is done for volcanoes because there is no control over it and we can only anticipate the damage and plan our moves. But to deal with tech debts the same way is to put resources out of the window. Having said that, there is a lack of proper continuous measurement that could trigger teams to pick up the tech debt more proactively. We will cover this later. Don't make your tech debt a tourist destination and something to write home about. You won't be making money from it. Unlike volcanoes, you probably don't want to have tech debt that becomes a warning example. This alienates all stakeholders and can cause further delays and loss of trust. You wouldn't wish your tech debt to say "Hello World" and become a reference point, especially if it doesn't come with a story of how it was dealt with. Especially if you are in a role that involves a lot of time spent on building a profile for your team. You also wouldn't want to have the Pompeii version of tech debts. You might be familiar with the story of Pompeii, where the eruption of Vesuvius happened. Retrospectively, we know that their reaction was too slow, the damage was too large, and it covered the whole city and its residents on their spots. By assessing your own tech debt and acknowledgement, avoids being taken by surprise when someone else raises it to you, and that also helps you to manage their expectations and helps your stakeholders to plan. Next, we can have a look at how you could deal with tech debt like volcanoes. Like someone who no longer wants to live next to a volcano, but can't move it, move yourself. Make a decision with the information available, review and repeat. Access either depart or handle it. If you decide to depart your tech debt, take an interdisciplinary approach when assessing it. Investigate all the loose ends and dependencies. Yes, this might be a very technical conversation, but see this as a chance to reflect it with your non-technical stakeholders on the impact and the time it consumed as form of manual work, poor usability, or the team's or product's reputation. Make the decision to stop developing on existing feature or service. Acknowledge that it is functional with the workarounds and the underlying issues are beyond repair, but also commit to not adding to it. Make the decision with the team and your stakeholders to decommission it. This will be, of course, easier if you are already in a process of replatforming or building a replacement. This way, it will save you time and map out the parts that are definitely out of scope. You might choose to park it for a fixed amount of time until there is the capacity or it's the right time for your goals. This way, you give the team and stakeholders closure and frees up their time for refactoring and fixing tech debt that is actually feasible. If you can't depart it, this could have multiple reasons. Make sure that they are clear when you assess it to handle it. Depending on the teams and the capacity, there are different ways to kick off an assessment. You could use your team health metrics if they have something that measure the confidence and the satisfaction the team has towards their own code. Conduct a tech debt retro. This will give your team space to reflect. Review all your static analysis for code smells and vulnerabilities. Categorize in more than one session if needed, so you can create some kind of matrix of what you could tackle and when. You could use categories like impact versus effort, urgency versus effort, quick wins versus low impact, or what's feasible and what you want to fix. Additionally, you can break it down further from point of view of timing. You can see which ones could be done as part of another ticket because they are relevant to it, or what could be long-term effort, so you could build it into your roadmap or objectives. Ensure that all parties commit to this current acknowledgement of these priorities. Be inclusive of test, environmental, and delivery issues as well. When you are addressing this with your team or external stakeholders, be mindful of the psychological safety for all of them, especially people who might represent other departments. Don't get intimidated by the potential amount of tech debt or time it could take. Be relieved that the steps are being taken. During the process, you might explore more areas with similar or even new issues. Don't shy away from the so-called unlikely areas of your product or the development cycle. Did you know that while the exact amount of the volcanoes in Antarctica is unknown, there are at least 138 of them just in the west of Antarctica? There are, once again, no miracle clear-outs on the Tech Debt, and it will be a long process. But by involving everyone early in the discovery, review, and decision-making, you will develop a long-lasting mentality that enables agile delivery of better software for its users, less bomb mines in the code, less workarounds, more stable environments, higher confidence and predictability, which in turn will help your product or commercial teams to inform their clients better. Review if needed, but add clear expectations and avoid the do-it-later situation without concrete plans that will be followed up. This is how you can break the layers of the volcano, get to the source of your tech debt, and break the wheel. So, while you're doing this, how could you prevent or minimize future tech debt? To reiterate, while we refer to defects as bugs, tech debt is more like trash that needs taking out. It will not crawl all over you, but it will fill your room and make you walk around it and at some point attract pests. Many times, there aren't metrics for tech debt like you would have for defects, for example. So you need to embed it in your ways of working and ensure that the team understands the value of reducing tech debt. Try to get buy-in from higher level if needed and get them invested into it as one of the team goals. Find a way to measure it. For example, make a tech debt label on your Jira ticket, create an epic, something like this, so there is visibility and you can then set realistic goals against them for when this could be fixed or even size them. Keep the team up to date, and if you have proven existing defect management process, consider using it for your tech debt as well. As you go on, adopt the TDD approach. TDD stands for Test-Driven Development. Use red, green, refactor. Red for writing the failing tests. Green for writing code that passes those tests. Refactor, improve the code quality before you leave there and then. If you later think something could have been done better, do it. These should all be small changes. If there's something that is so large, this is something you need to address and consider in your next refinement session as well. Be proactive. Leave things better than you found it, and don't leave any waste behind. While the term tech debt indicates that the focus is in the tech, approach it with an interdisciplinary ownership. UX and product, or whoever is relevant, should involve the whole team early since the birth of the very idea of a new product or feature. You could do this through ideation sessions, kickoffs, risk assessment, anything. This will give the rest of the team a heads up for the upcoming work, help them time and start planning a little bit, and then have less regrets during the technical implementation and afterwards. Remember, the main point is not to solve everything as soon as possible, while this would be ideal, but and knowledge that is a lengthy process, and it might require special expertise that are not available at all times. Remember to keep the non-blame culture and that we are all in this together. The main issue is that if decisions are not made and tech debt is not discussed, it puts teams into tech and quality limbos where it keeps piling up. Its presence is growingly known by the team and externally, and it will continue to create workarounds, waste time, create poor usability, and decrease quality altogether. From a team's point of view, it will be demotivating. It will become a running gag that has been given up on. Put the focus on the decision making and involving everyone, and be mindful that it can't be done overnight. This is why it's important to work together. Don't be complacent to the incomplete quality. Don't be like that helicopter that just hovers around it, doing nothing, and decide that it's time to clear out. And this is all I had to say today. I hope you liked it and it was worth your time. Thank you for listening. Once again, I apologize for not having been live yet for that today, but if there's anything you would like to ask or just have a chat about, we are all having a very difficult year. We struggle with a lot of things. Some people have children at home, some people work from home, some people read hybrid depending on the situation. So if anyone just wants to have a chat, feel free to contact me. So here are my contact details. If you have any feedback or if you just generally want to have a chat, I will be happy to hear you out, and it will help me improve with my presentations and with my ways of thinking, of course. So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or just email me directly. So I hope you will have a nice afternoon and enjoy the rest of the conference, and take good care. And Merry Christmas if it's not too early. Thank you, guys. Bye.